what we have in this example is a work application of a rational equation. If Joe can paint a house in 3 hours and Sam can paint the same house in 5 hours, how long does it take for them to do it together? Now, you'll see this formula, and you'll see this formula again when you read through the section in the ebook and take your notes. But I want to introduce you to the formula now so you can see how it would be used. So we have 3 variables here, A, B, and T. All right, so let's talk about what each of these variables would stand for. A would stand for the time it takes one person to do the job alone. So let's say this is Joe. We'll say time for Joe to complete job alone. So if Joe is working by himself, A is going to be the time it takes him to paint the house. And then B is the time it takes for the other person. So B would be time for Sam to complete the job alone. Now, T, since there's not a third person, T is going to be the time it takes for Joe and Sam to complete the job working together. Okay, so those are our 3 variables. Let's go ahead and fill in what we know, and then we'll talk a little bit more about why this formula actually works. So Joe takes 3 hours. So instead of 1 over A, I have 1 over 3. And Sam takes 5 hours. So that's plus 1 over 5. And T is what we're looking for. The question is asking us to find how long it takes for each of them to do it together. So T is what we need to find. Now let's talk about why this formula works. So 1/3 represents the portion of the job that Joe can complete in 1 hour. Okay, let's think about that. If he can do the whole entire job in 3 hours, that means in 1 hour he got 1/3 of the job done. So each hour he's going to paint 1/3 of the house, and then in 3 hours he'll be done. So that means 1/5 is the portion of the job that Sam can complete in 1 hour. Okay, so if it takes Sam 5 hours to paint the house, in 1 hour he will be 1/5 of the way done. So he would need 5 hours to finish if he was working by himself. Now, we're going to draw a little picture. Pictures are always fun. Okay, so here's our house. Alrighty, and let's say we have Sam over here working. He's got his paint bucket, and he's painting that house. Alright, and let's say we've got Joe over here. Here's his paint bucket, and he's painting that house. And let's say Joe starts on the west side of the house and Sam starts on the east side of the house, and they just start painting, and they're going to meet somewhere in between when they're done. And let's say we tell them each to paint for an hour. Well, in 1 hour, Joe's going to get 1/3 of the house done. So this looks like about 1/3 of the house. And in that same hour, Sam is going to get 1/5 of the house done. So maybe this is 1/5 of the house. That's Sam's portion. So after 1 hour, they've completed 1/3 of the house plus 1/5 of the house. So we can find out the portion of the whole entire house that they've completed after they've been painting on separate sides of the house for an hour. Now, what that means is if they are working together, which they are, what portion of the house together did they get painted in 1 hour? That's what this 1 over T is. So this is the portion of the job completed in 1 hour when Joe and Sam work together. Okay, so if we can figure out what that t is, what that denominator of that fraction is, then that tells us how long it would take them to do the whole entire house. Okay, so now that we understand the formula, let's go ahead and solve it. So I have 1/3 plus 1/5 equals 1 over t. This is an equal sign right here. All right, so we need the LCD of 3, 5, and t. So that's just going to be the product of all of them. So it's going to be 15t. So I'm going to multiply both sides of my equation by 15t. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute. So I'm going to get 15t times 1/3 plus 15t times 1/5 equals 1 over t times 15t. Okay. All right. So 15t times 1/3, divide out common factors of 3. So that leaves me with 5t. 15t 15t times 1/5. They have common factors of 5, so that leaves behind 3t. 3t times 1, which is just 3t. And over here, the common factors of t divide out, so that's just 1 times 15, which is 15. Combine like terms, 8t equals 15, and divide both sides by 8, and t equals 15/8, which makes more sense as a mixed number because we're talking about time, so instead of 15/8 of an hour, we would say 1 7/8 hours. So, as we can see, the answer at the very end of our little video clip from the Little Big League, the last answer, the 1 7/8 hours, was correct. Now, let's just briefly talk about that and make sure we understand what the pattern is here for when we do more problems like this in the future. Think about it. If Joe can do it in 3 hours by himself, the only way he would want somebody to help him is if that's going to help him do it faster. So the other suggestions, such as 4 hours, 8 hours, or 15 hours, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you have someone help you if it's going to take you longer to do it? So your final answer should when it's a work application problem and you're trying to figure out how long it takes the 2 people to do it together, when 2 people are doing it together, the time together should be less than, time together should be less than the quicker person's time, or the faster person's time. So Joe was quicker at painting the house. He was 3 hours. So if he's going to have help, he wants to chop that 3 hours down to less time, or else he would just do it by himself in 3 hours. Why would he take more time if he could do it by himself in 3 hours? So this 1 7/8 of an hour, since that's less than 3, it makes sense. So our final answer is 1 7/8 hours.